7 reasons why you're not gaining muscle. Many people, after moving past the initial beginner gains phase, find that no matter how hard they train, and even if they have a caloric surplus in their diet, their physique remains unchanged over a long period. This can actually be attributed to 7 reasons. 1. Training frequency is too low. A survey found that many people only train each muscle group once a week, which is known as a 5-day split. While this allows you to focus on specific muscle groups and thoroughly exhaust them, multiple studies show that this approach is highly inefficient. In a randomized study comparing the difference in muscle growth between training a muscle once and 3 times a week, even though both groups had the same total training volume, the results showed that those who trained each muscle once a week only increased their lean body mass by 1%, while those who trained 3 times a week saw an 8% increase. Many other studies have found similar results. Training each muscle group only once a week means you need to complete a large volume of work in one session, which can lead to fatigue and force you to reduce the weight or perform low-quality sets. If you spread out this volume throughout the week, you'll have more strength and energy to perform better in the later sets. Another reason is that protein synthesis usually remains elevated only for about 72 hours after a workout, so if you train a muscle once every 7 days, it will only be stimulated for 3 days, leaving it idle for the other 4. 2. You're not eating enough cholesterol. A 12-week strength training study found that insufficient cholesterol intake can slow down your muscle gain. There is a linear relationship between dietary cholesterol intake and muscle growth. In another study, researchers compared a high cholesterol diet 800 milligrams per day with a low cholesterol diet less than 200 milligrams per day. The results showed that the high cholesterol group had nearly 3 times the rate of muscle protein synthesis within 22 hours after strength training compared to the low cholesterol group. Researchers concluded that cholesterol helps muscle growth by aiding the body's response to inflammation and enhancing cellular communication. Good cholesterol comes from healthy fats, so it's essential to consume enough fat. 3. Your form focus is misaligned. A common mistake in training is not focusing on the right aspects. The most important thing in training is to consistently challenge your muscles, which is known as progressive overload. Although there are many ways to achieve this, the most effective is to lift heavier weights over time. Countless studies have shown a linear relationship between muscle mass and strength in weightlifters, but many people focus too much on control. In an effort to perform slow eccentric movements and extreme stabilization, they reduce the weight by nearly 50%. This is like throwing away the grain and keeping the chaff, losing sight of the main goal. 4. You're not managing fatigue well. We all know that the greater the training volume, the greater the gains. However, more volume isn't always better. If you can't recover from your workouts, you're likely to fall into overtraining. Overtraining syndrome can lead to insomnia, loss of appetite, decreased memory and immunity, loss of interest in exercise, and more. However, slightly increasing your training volume over time can be beneficial. If you're recovering well between sessions, but not making any progress or have been stuck for a long time, you can try slightly increasing the volume, but be sure to know your limits. 5. You're doing too much cardio. A 2012 meta-analysis found that adding cardio to resistance training can reduce muscle growth efficiency by 39% because cardio reduces the activity of mTOR, an enzyme crucial for muscle growth. Cardio also increases the activity of the catabolic enzyme which is detrimental to muscle growth. Additionally, adding cardio to strength training reduces strength because it slows down muscle activation and consumes more glycogen. Therefore, if your goal is to gain muscle, do less cardio or stick to low-intensity cardio like walking. 6. You want to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Many people are aware of this but still try to achieve both simultaneously. In some specific situations, you can gain muscle while in a caloric deficit, but for long-term muscle gain, a caloric surplus is necessary. This surplus triggers physiological changes that promote muscle growth, including increased testosterone and IGF-1 levels and decreased cortisol levels. These hormonal changes increase muscle protein synthesis and reduce protein breakdown. However, you don't need to overdo the surplus. For example, a 12-week study compared the muscle growth of athletes with a slight caloric surplus to those who consumed an extra 600 calories. The results showed that those who consumed an extra 600 calories gained 5 times more body fat. To minimize fat gain, a surplus of about 4% to 8% is ideal. 7. You're not eating enough protein. If you don't consume enough protein, your body can't maintain a positive nitrogen balance. A positive nitrogen balance means that the protein intake exceeds the amount being broken down. Our daily activities and training constantly break down and degrade muscle proteins. If protein intake is insufficient, it will affect your muscle gain rate. According to a 2008 meta-analysis, you need at least 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day to maximize muscle growth. These are the 7 reasons why you may not be gaining muscle. If you have any other questions about muscle gain, feel free to leave a comment. Why is belly fat hard to lose? Whether you're a professional fitness enthusiast or a beginner, you've likely heard that belly fat is the most stubborn to lose. However, few people can explain why this is the case. Today, let's delve into the intricacies behind this phenomenon. First, it's important to understand that our body's anatomical structure is flexible and functional. Even if you have perfectly sculpted abs, they won't always be visible. The skin, muscles, and deeper tissues of the abdomen need to have the ability to stretch and fold to support various movements. When you sit down, your abdominal muscles naturally relax, and the skin folds. This is a completely normal and healthy response. Even professional bodybuilders on stage experience this. No one can maintain a perfectly chiseled appearance at all times. When they eat a large meal, their stomachs will also bulge, making their abs less visible. Another key reason is the presence of 2 types of receptors in fat cells: alpha and beta receptors. Beta receptors, when activated, stimulate fat breakdown for energy. There are more beta receptors in areas like the arms, legs, and face. However, alpha receptors do the opposite. They inhibit fat breakdown. When alpha receptors are activated, they signal the fat to retain its stores. Unfortunately, the fat cells in the lower abdomen tend to have a higher concentration of alpha receptors compared to beta receptors. Even when you're in a long-term calorie deficit, the alpha receptors in the lower abdomen will resist losing fat until the very end. The third reason is that the lower abdominal area has less blood flow. Blood flow is crucial for fat loss because it transports fat-burning hormones to the fat cells and then carries the stored fat to areas like the liver to be processed into energy. Lower blood flow in the abdomen means fewer hormones reach these fat cells, making it less effective at mobilizing fat. The fourth reason is genetics. Genetics determine which parts of our bodies are more prone to storing fat. For example, some people naturally store more fat in their thighs, mid-thighs, hips, arms, and face, and of course, in the lower abdomen. Some people, even with a very low body fat percentage, won't achieve a perfect triangular proportion. This is because the shape and insertion points of the oblique muscles and rectus abdominis are also influenced by genetics. So, 2 people with the same body type and muscle mass might have completely different proportions. There's also a gender factor. Women tend to store more fat in the hips and lower body, while men accumulate fat primarily around the waist and lower abdomen. This is mainly due to the influence of estrogen, which causes fat to selectively accumulate in the chest and hips in women, better distinguishing fat distribution. Lastly, poor posture can also contribute to the appearance of belly fat. If you habitually slouch or hunch over while standing, it can compress the abdomen, making the fat appear thicker. An anterior pelvic tilt is another culprit behind a protruding lower abdomen. This is often caused by prolonged sitting, leading to weakened glutes and shortened hip flexors. This posture can also make your lower back more prone to injury. However, by strengthening the glutes and upper back, reducing the time spent sitting, or practicing better posture, you can improve your appearance. Although it may not have a significant effect, it can make your body look more balanced. That's all the information on why belly fat is harder to lose. Understanding these factors will hopefully bring you one step closer to achieving your ideal physique. How to calculate a fat loss diet, a detailed guide with practical application. The first step in calculating your diet is to determine your total daily energy expenditure, D. TDE is the sum of your basal metabolic rate, BMR, daily activities, and exercise. BMR can be calculated using the formula provided in the chart below, or you can get your BMR measured at a gym. Once you have your BMR, multiply it by your daily activity factor. This factor takes into account your work intensity and lifestyle habits. Even if you work out at the gym every day, if your job involves a lot of sitting, you should use the lowest activity factor. Finally, add the calories burned during your workout. An hour of strength training burns about 300 calories, and an hour of cardio burns around 400 calories. You can refer to the chart for more specific figures. The final number is your total energy expenditure. The second step, after knowing your total energy expenditure, is to set your goal. If your goal is fat loss, subtract 200 to 800 calories from your TD. The higher your body fat percentage, the more calories you can subtract. For clean muscle gain, add about 200 calories. The third step is to break down these calories into macronutrients. The 3 main macronutrients are carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Carbohydrates provide energy for the brain and muscles, protein is essential for building cells and tissues, and fat is crucial for hormone regulation. Therefore, all 3 are important. A common ratio for dividing these macronutrients is 5-3-2 carbs protein. Another method is to ensure you consume 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, and then adjust the ratio of carbs and fats based on your preference. However, You should ensure a minimum intake of 2 grams of carbs and 0.5 grams of fat per kilogram of body weight. Once these basic requirements are met, the remaining calories can be filled with any foods you like. Let's take an example of an 80 kilograms, 176 lb, 175 centimeters, 5 feet 9 inches, 25-year-old male. Using the BMR formula, his BMR is calculated to be 1,858.02 calories. Since his job involves mostly sitting in front of a computer, we multiplied this by the lowest activity factor of 1.2, resulting in 2,230 calories. He has a good habit of going to the gym 4 times a week, 3 times for strength training and once for cardio. After subtracting time for warm-up and shower, he averages 1 hour of exercise. So if today's workout is strength training, we add 300 calories. For cardio, we add 400 calories. His physique is muscular, but with a bit of belly fat, and his goal is to gain muscle without adding too much fat. Therefore, he adds a 200-calorie surplus. The final total is 2,230 calories on rest days, 2,730 calories on strength training days, and 2,830 calories on cardio days. For a rest day, using the 5-3-2 ratio, this breaks down to 1,215 calories from carbs, 720 calories from protein, and 480 calories from fat. Since 1 gram of carbs has 4 calories, 1 gram of protein also has 4 calories, and 1 gram of fat has 9 calories, he would need to eat 303 grams of carbs, 182 grams of protein, and 54 grams of fat. Using the second method, start by calculating protein needs. 80 kilograms 1.5 equal to 120 grams of protein. The minimum carb intake is 160 grams, and the minimum fat intake is 40 grams. The combined calories from these 3 sources total 1,480 calories. The remaining 750 calories can be split between carbs and fats. If you prefer to lift heavy weights, you can allocate all the remaining calories to carbs. Eating more carbs is easy since common staples like rice and noodles are carb-rich. However, getting enough protein is often a challenge for many people. If you don't have time to prepare food or can't consume that much chicken breast, you can use concentrated whey protein powder from Training Monster. Its whey is sourced from a century-old dairy company in Germany, and the ingredients come from renowned global suppliers. For example, the chocolate flavor uses authentic cocoa from Ghana. Real tea powder is added to enhance the flavor while supplementing protein. The powder dissolves well and is easy to mix, with over 75% protein content. Each container includes a 30-gram scoop, equivalent to about 75 grams of chicken breast in protein content. Just 2 scoops a day will cover the basic dietary needs of an adult. To apply this in your daily life, I recommend 2 tools: an online electronic course that costs only 9.9 yuan with free shipping, and an app to record your daily diet. Many apps now help you calculate your calorie intake. Just input how many grams of each food you ate, and it will calculate the total calories for you. Finally, there are a few things to keep in mind in your diet. You should consume at least 3 to 5 different colors of vegetables and 3 different sources of protein every day. In addition to the 3 main macronutrients, there are many other micronutrients that need to be supplemented, such as vitamins, minerals, and bioactive compounds. These micronutrients are crucial for growth, development, and athletic performance. Picky eaters may find themselves in a suboptimal health state. That's all for how to calculate your diet. I hope this helps you. Should similar muscle groups be trained with different weights? Some people believe that muscle groups with a higher proportion of slow twitch fibers, like the calves and deltoids, should be trained with lighter weights to better stimulate muscle growth. This is because slow twitch fibers are characterized by low strength but high endurance, so lighter weights supposedly make them more effective. On the other hand, upper body muscles like the pectorals, triceps, and biceps are thought to have more fast twitch fibers, which should be trained with heavier weights and fewer repetitions, as fast twitch fibers are powerful but have low endurance. The idea is that using different training methods based on the type of muscle fibers will stimulate them more effectively. However, this belief is actually incorrect. In the USA 2020 study compared the effects of different weights on calf muscles, specifically the soleus and gastrocnemius muscles. We already know that the deeper soleus muscle is almost entirely composed of slow twitch fibers, while the more superficial gastrocnemius muscle has a slightly higher proportion of fast twitch fibers. The researchers recruited 26 untrained participants and had them perform single leg standing and seated weight training twice a week for 10 weeks. One leg was trained with lighter weights, 20 to 30 reps per set, repeated until failure, while the other leg was trained with heavier weights, 6 to 10 reps per set, repeated until failure, with a 90-second rest between sets. The results showed that muscle growth in both legs was similar, regardless of the weight used. This experiment's findings do not support the idea of training based on muscle fiber type. If the idea were valid, the slow twitch fiber-dominant soleus muscle should have responded better to lighter weight stimulation. But as the results showed, heavy weights were just as effective. Finally, we should understand a principle in resistance training called the Henneman size principle. This principle states that the lower the demand on the muscle, the fewer muscle fibers are recruited. The higher the demand, the more muscle fibers are involved. Both fast and slow twitch fibers are engaged regardless of whether you're using heavy or light weights. When training with heavy weights, fast twitch fibers are more easily recruited. With light weights, slow twitch fibers can handle the load initially. But as these fibers near exhaustion, fast twitch fibers are eventually recruited as well. The only difference is that when training to failure with light weights, more metabolic waste accumulates. However, as discussed in a previous video, research has shown that for natural bodybuilding, metabolic stress does not significantly contribute to muscle growth. Excess metabolic waste can actually impair your strength output in subsequent exercises. For instance, an increase in lactic acid can lower the pH level in muscle cells, putting muscle fibers in an acidic environment. An increase in inorganic phosphate can affect muscle calcium ion handling, which in turn impacts muscle contraction. Accumulation of hydrogen ions can lead to acidosis, further impairing muscle function. In experiments, training volumes are usually very small, with participants doing only 2 or 3 sets per exercise. So, considering the overall training schedule, it's more practical to focus on heavy weights with fewer than 12 repetitions in actual practice.